control. Welcome to Inside Business. I'm Myron Kandel. Today we're looking at the pharmaceutical industry and Glaxo Holdings, the world's second largest drug company. Based in London, Glaxo had sales last year of about $3.4 billion from such well-known products as the ulcer drug Zantac, the asthma drug Ventolin, and many others. My guest is Glaxo's recently named Chief Executive, Ernest Mario. He joined the company just under 3 years ago as president of its American subsidiary after spending 20 years in the U.S. pharmaceutical industry. Born and reared in New Jersey, he's the first American to head the British pharmaceutical giant. Glaxo has doubled its sales over the last 5 years, a good part of that growth coming in the U.S., which is now by far its largest market. Ernest Mario is my guest on this edition of Inside Business. My fellow panelists are Marcia Loeb, managing editor of Fortune magazine, and Mark Whitaker, business editor of Newsweek magazine. Ernest, a New Jersey boy in one of London's top executive suites, how's it going?
It's going very well, thank you. Appreciate being here.
Okay, well, let me ask you, is there a big cultural shock in moving from the U.S. to London, an American heading one of Britain's biggest companies?
Well, it's quite different. Although we had the advantage, my wife and I, of having spent a lot of time in London in a previous life, so to speak, with Squibb Corporation, actually. So we know the city very well. It's a wonderful place to live. We're enjoying it very much. We have just put a bid on a house in Marlow, which is west of Heathrow, very nice area on the Thames. And we live in a flat, as they say, an apartment in Chelsea, right near Sloane Square.
Okay, but it was a big surprise, at least to a lot of people who watch the pharmaceutical industry last May, when you were named to the job of chief executive of the parent company. There's got to be some reasoning behind that. What was it?
I think basically it was the tremendous success that we achieved in a very short period of time in the United States marketplace. Glaxo started in the U.S. in 1977 through the acquisition of a small company in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, named Meyer Laboratories. They were essentially a vitamin house, or as my colleagues in the UK would say, a vitamin house. Yeah. And the company really was looking at this late stage. That's Glaxo Holdings was looking at this late stage to establish a foothold in the #1 market in pharmaceutical industry, which is the United States. Took a lot of courage to do that, by the way, to come into this marketplace that late in the game against companies like Lilly and Squibb and Werner Lambert and Merck. Nevertheless, our chairman, Sir Paul Girolami, who pushed this activity, did in fact convince the board in those days to buy the small company, to establish ourselves as a fledgling pharmaceutical company in the U.S. marketplace. Zantac came along, which of course is our anti-ulcer compound, in 1983. Prior to that time, we used what I'll call co-promotional, co-marketing agreements with Schering, for example. They sold our Ventolin product under another trade name. To allow us to generate enough revenue to stay in the business. Zantac then really helped the company take off. When I joined in 1986, the company had gone through what I call the basic establishment of the organization. I came in and literally exploded the business, more than I think any other pharmaceutical company has seen in the U.S. We grew the sales force, for example, from 500 people when I joined to almost 2,000 today. We made a tremendous investment in research and development. We now have our own basic research in the United States that ties in to the research group in the UK, as well as one in Italy. The growth of Glaxo coming from essentially nowhere in the U.S. market to today the #2 company in prescription pharmaceutical sales, just behind Merck, I guess was looked upon by the parent. It's a long way to answer your question, but it looked upon by the parent as being indicative of the kind of stimulus that they may have been looking for in the rest of the world, where we have some very successful businesses.
Tell me, what are going to be the really hot pharmaceuticals coming on the market in the 1990s? Not the far-out things, but drugs that you anticipate realistically will make significant changes and be major markets.
I think you have to look at research today in two avenues. One avenue is into discovering drugs where there's nothing right now. For example, in CNS, Alzheimer's problems, AIDS as a serious problem in the antiviral area. But that's only a piece of where people are looking. They're also looking at the existing products that go through the 50 therapeutic categories that are known to the industry, and they're trying to get things that are more specific, safer. Aldamet shouldn't do that. Sorry, I was going to talk about a competitor product that was used for hypertension. It was a very successful product until the channel blockers came along, the ACE inhibitors came along, and they turned out to be more specific. And products that were used for hypertension, to treat hypertension, before now have started to lose market share. So there hasn't been a revolution, there's just been a better product.
Okay, we're going to take a break right here, but we'll be back with a lot more from Ernest Mario, Chief Executive of Glaxo Holdings. Stay with us.
For most people, finding cash for a new car isn't easy. But Volkswagen's Summer Cash program makes it simple. You see, Volkswagen will give you up to $1,500 cash back on all Wolfsburg limited edition models, GTIs, Jetta GLIs, and campers. Visit your Volkswagen dealer today before we pull the plug on the Volkswagen cash machine. But hurry, or you might encounter a little line.
Your mouth. We've studied your mouth from every angle and created a toothbrush with a very special angle, the Reach toothbrush. The Reach toothbrush was designed with a unique dental angle to clean even hard-to-reach back teeth, to get your teeth 51% cleaner than the other leading brush. The Reach toothbrush from Johnson & Johnson for 51% cleaner teeth.
Life doesn't stand still for a headache, so when you can't take 5, take 3. Maximum strength Anacin 3, aspirin-free, sodium-free, caffeine-free. When you can't take 5, take 3. Maximum strength Anacin 3.
A few words on business and change.
The journals are daily, and that gives you a real competitive advantage. It's very tough out there, but it's also very exciting. We want to be the best ally that you've got.
Today's Wall Street Journal. Faster, tougher, smarter. Call 800-334-6600 for this special Journal offer. 12 weeks, just $29.75 with a money-back guarantee. Call 800-334-6600 now for the Wall Street Journal.
Monday, President Bush goes one-on-one with the people of the Netherlands on the final leg of his European trip. His speech live on CNN, 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday.
Inside Business is back. We're talking with Ernest Mario, CEO of Glaxo Holdings. And Marshall Loeb of Fortune has the next question.
Ernest, we know you're working on some major drugs for victims of ailments as disparate as migraine, headaches, and asthma, and cancer. How rapidly will those drugs come to market, and are they coming on stream fast enough, or are they getting some barriers in the form of resistance from the Food and Drug Administration?
Marshall, it takes about anywhere from 6 to 8 years to bring a compound from its first inception to commercial reality. We have just filed applications on an antiemetic drug, a drug used to control retching, vomiting, and nausea. That drug was first discovered 5.5 years ago. For us to have filed that application in that short a period of time is rather extraordinary. It would normally take 6 to 8 years. It's not a question of hurdles being unduly obstructive. It's just a question of getting all the work done, doing it properly, in its time, and being sure that when we put the product out in the marketplace, it will do what we say it will do and nothing else.
Well, when can we expect them?
The antiemetic product will probably be approved in Europe by the end of this year. We will file in the U.S. with the FDA in September. We expect we'll get approval from the U.S. agency if our application is in good order, which we believe it is, within about 1 year. We're following that on in the spring of 1990 with our anti-migraine compound, which is a novel product. It's derived from so-called 5-HT chemistry, which is being looked at very carefully by several companies. We have the lead in that area. This compound actually works in eliminating migraine headaches as they begin, and we hope down the road that it can be used prophylactically as well. Then we have in the second half of 1990 a filing program for a series of asthma compounds, a beta-2 agonist, long-acting beta-2 agonist, and an anti-inflammatory steroid compound. We believe the combination of these two drugs will control about 95% of the asthma problem in the world. Glaxo, by the way, has 45% of the asthma market. We are dominant in that field, and therefore we spent a lot of time in our research, and we're delighted to have these compounds to come on.
Ernest, you're now in a unique position to watch the progress towards 1992, the economic unification of Europe. What do you see as both the challenges and the opportunities for the pharmaceutical industry and for U.S. companies in 1992?
I think, Mark, that the 92 harmonization, as it's called, will be a tremendous advantage to the Japanese companies, because it will allow them to enter 12 different markets, theoretically at least, through one application to one agency. It will be somewhat helpful to the American companies, drug companies, who will also be able to get into these markets, so to speak, with one application, but who have learned to deal in the 12 different markets more effectively, at least at this point, than the Japanese. It will be less advantageous to the European companies who, of course, in their own backyard have learned how to handle putting their products into these various markets. They're familiar with the customs and the culture of each of the various countries, how the government works, how the pricing structure, and so on. So I think the 92 harmonization, as it evolves, will be less helpful to Glaxo, more helpful to the Americans, and most helpful to the Japanese.
What do you see as the major problems you're going to face? What are the implications for pricing, for distribution, for getting products to market?
I think the pricing issue is a critical one. I think with the coming of 92, there is now a significant amount of so-called transparency of pricing. That is to say, it is clear that the West German marketplace is the highest priced, and lower priced markets like Spain and Greece, these prices are now quite apparent. And you can tell that it's apparent by the amount of parallel imports. That is, where a product is sold into one country and then it is imported or parallel transferred into a higher priced country. We sell into the markets in which we have our companies. Other people will take these lower priced goods, in some cases repackaging them. And then there's a problem, because when they repackage them, there's difficulty with the quality, assuring the integrity of the product, and so on. But we can see from parallel imports that the disparity in some of the prices is one of the things that will fall out from the 92 harmonization. Distribution is another issue. Distribution of goods and services crossing country lines, I think, will be helped by the harmonization, clearly.
Ernest, we just have about 45 seconds left in this segment, and I want to ask you this question. Zantac is by far the biggest selling drug in the world. It accounts for more than half of your sales. What do you do for an encore?
Yeah, that's what everyone would like to know. And basically what you do is you continue to invest heavily in your research programs using the revenues from products like Zantac and Ventolin. And you don't necessarily have to look for another Zantac, but you can look for 2 or 3 compounds that might add up to another Zantac.
Okay, we're going to take another break here. Inside Business will be right back with Ernest Mario, CEO of Glaxo Holdings. Stay with us.
For most most people, finding cash for a new car isn't easy. But Volkswagen's Summer Cash program makes it simple. You see, Volkswagen will give you up to $1,500 cash back on all Wolfsburg limited edition models, GTIs, Jetta GLIs, and campers. Visit your Volkswagen dealer today before we pull the plug on the Volkswagen cash machine. But hurry, or you might encounter a little line.
The most acclaimed nature documentary in the history of television is now available on video cassette. Witness nature in all its awesome power and deadly beauty. Time Life Video and WNET announce the Nature Video Library. A series so remarkable, the New York Times hails it as television at its most impressive. Your first video adventure takes you to Hawaii, islands of the fire goddess. Born in the conflict of fire and water, Hawaii is a land of amazing contrasts, a kaleidoscope of color, a menacing land of sudden death. This is Hawaii as few have seen it. Call now to receive Hawaii at the low introductory price of only $9.99 plus shipping and handling. Other exciting video cassettes will follow at only $19.99. Keep only those you want. Cancel at any time.
Credit card customers call 1-800-682-3600 now to get your first video cassette, Hawaii, at the special introductory price of just $9.99. Or send 1322 to Nature, P.O. Box 1880, Department 2, Alexandria, Virginia. Or call now, 1-800-682-3600.
Inside Business is back. We're talking with Ernest Mario, CEO of Glaxo Holdings, and Mark Whitaker of Newsweek has the next question.
Ernest, a number of pharmaceutical companies in this country have become much more aggressive about advertising, general advertising in print and on television. This is quite controversial because some people say that it encourages patients to pressure their doctors to prescribe certain kinds of drugs. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think it's a dangerous practice. Quite frankly, the research-intensive pharmaceutical companies have for years worked very closely with the medical profession, the medical community, to educate, because that's really what the business we're in is, of educating the medical practitioner to best serve his patient's needs. In a sense, by advertising directly to the public with prescription drugs, you are second-guessing, in some ways, the physician. I don't think that's particularly useful for the most part. I think if the physician understands what our products can do, he's the one in the best position to handle a patient's requirements.
Glaxo is one of the many companies now that's working on a possible cure for AIDS. Could you talk about where you are and what you think the most fruitful avenues that are being pursued right now are?
We have a product that we've licensed from the University of Minnesota called Carbavir, which is very similar to AZT, the Burroughs Wellcome Retrovir product. In early studies, it appears at this early stage that there is less bone marrow depression, and therefore the product may be less toxic, We will very shortly go into volunteers with this product, having just completed some animal studies. That's basically the thrust of our near-term prospects with AIDS.
But I gather that we're really not close to a breakthrough on AIDS so far as we can tell. And just following up on that, if and when we do achieve something dramatic against AIDS, won't that have all sorts of great consequences for other viral infections, from the common cold onto other things?
Yes, I believe that's right. I think once the mechanism is unlocked, it will open the way, as it has been unlocked, so to speak, with this receptor lock and key mechanism. I mean, years ago, drugs were discovered by making compounds and then putting them into animal models to see if they worked or what they did. Now the disease state is studied. We look at the enzyme systems, and the chemists actually create a molecule that will fit to either antagonize or agonize, or be an antagonist or an agonist to a certain enzyme system. It's gotten very specific. The reason that's happened is because it's so expensive. to develop new drugs. The age of serendipity is gone.
How optimistic or not optimistic are you that within the next 5 or 10 years we really will have made dramatic progress against AIDS?
I think what's happened in research, in medical research, in the last, if you look at the progress of the last 5 or 10 years, it makes all the prior progress very tiny in comparison. The reason for that is because of the communications revolution that's occurred in the world. You can now go and go to your computer, and in a matter of a day at the most, you can find out what is happening in the medical, in the scientific community around the world, as opposed to having to go back and reinvent the wheel and redo experiments. It's all there at your fingertips. So scientists all around the world now are building on this base of knowledge, not redoing 50% of it. So I look for tremendous strides in the next 5 or 10 years. Why is life expectancy going up, and do you expect more strides in the next 5 or 10 years? Well, I think life expectancy is going up because of better nutrition, particularly in this country, the understanding of the need to exercise, I think the prudent use of pharmaceuticals. I think just a general awareness of the public as to how to take care of themselves a little better. I think those are the reasons for longevity. They create a whole new market, because as people live longer, certain disease states that were not significant in the past because folks died before they really came, these disease states took over. Now we're starting to see, a lot more cancer. I mean, if you live longer, sure, chances of acquiring it, unfortunately increase. We have a whole program at Glaxo which deals with geriatrics and medicines for people as they age.
Ernest, there's a big push on, particularly in this country, for generic drugs. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think the patent system, particularly in the U.S. and Japan, is fair. I think it's reasonable, particularly with patent term restoration. We're hoping that Glaxo is working very hard that we can get this accomplished in Britain and a couple of other countries in Europe. Right now, only the U.S. and Japan have patent term restoration. Once the patent expires, then, of course, as it is everywhere in the system, other people can step in. But a generic company, remember, a generic company deals with price. A company like Glaxo deals with value, deals with service, not just price.
Okay, that winds up this segment of Inside Business. My guest has been Ernest Mario, CEO of Glaxo Holdings. Our panelists have been Marcia Loeb, managing editor of Fortune, and Mark Whitaker, business editor of Newsweek. When Inside Business returns, we'll hear from attorney Raoul Felder with an Inside Business view of the law. Stay with us.
For most people, finding cash for a new car isn't easy. But Volkswagen's Summer Cash program makes it simple. You see, Volkswagen will give you up to $1,500 cash back on all Wolfsburg limited edition models, GTIs, Jetta GLIs, and campers. Visit your Volkswagen dealer today before we pull the plug on the Volkswagen cash machine. But hurry, or you might encounter a little line.
Yes, it's that fabulous funny face. When Lucille Ball laughed, we laughed. When she cried, we laughed. No matter what she did, we laughed. It's no wonder I Love Lucy is one of the most popular comedies in TV history.
Get in that show if it's the last thing I do.
Own I Love Lucy, the collector's edition, uncut and professionally restored. Available on video cassette exclusively from the CBS Video Library. Order your first 3-episode cassette for only $4.95. Enjoy Lucy at her side-splitting best.
No, let me have it. Okay.
Clowning around. Stomping more than grapes. Watch the Queen of Comedy earn her title again and again. Order now and you'll get the I Love Lucy book free. Have your credit card ready and call the number on your screen now. Credit card orders only, please.
Did you ever see my imitation of a Pekingese? A Pekingese?
What in the world's going on this morning?
Good morning, and welcome to CNN's Early Bird News. This morning's top...
CNN's Early Bird News at 5:30 Eastern, weekday mornings.
Welcome back to Inside Business. Now with a look inside the law, Here's attorney Raoul Felder.
Say it isn't so, Joe. Whether or not Pete Rose bet on his own team or not is itself a small matter. The legal maneuvers, however, might set dangerous precedents. The Baseball Commissioner's unique role of both prosecutor and judge exists in other businesses and professions: medicine, the law, stock market, movie industry, banking, and insurance. If an industry has a stranglehold over an aspect of the public's life, whether it be the legal game or the baseball game, it is not unreasonable to create a governing regulatory body that is available to redress a wrong. It is also more efficient. To wait a year or more for a court trial in order to take away a license from a quack doctor or an unethical lawyer, or to prevent a crooked athlete from playing, would hardly serve the public's interest. Of course, there is always a resort to courts to determine if due process had its day, but the proper role of the court system is to review after the fact and upon an analysis of the entire record, and then determine if all applicable legal standards were met. This brings us to Judge Norbert A. Nadel in Cincinnati. As the press noted, Norbert Nadel, as he sits in judgment of a local hero, is coming up for election in 1990. Moreover, in one of the more distasteful yet acceptable customs of American judicial politics, Nadel received campaign contributions from both sets of lawyers. Undoubtedly, Nadel rendered a decision that he felt was the fairest and most proper and appropriate one. However, there are questions. Was this merely Norbert's 15 minutes of fame? Was Rose manipulating the judicial system to delay Judgment Day? Is the press correct in suggesting the judge may have been influenced in a tough decision involving a local hero on the eve of an election? Unfortunately, judges are forbidden to comment or defend themselves, and that may be unfair itself. So we will never hear his answer to, "Say it isn't so, Norbert." I'm Raoul Felder.
That's it for this edition of Inside Business. I'm Myron Kandel. Have a very good week.